Hello, everyone. This is Sparkle On with Davy Jags. Today, I have my friend Ataia, who is a singer and songwriter here in LA. I met Ataia at a coffee shop, Sight Glass, in Hollywood through
Yeah.
mutual friends. And she came to my birthday, which was at my Dodgers, like at the Dodgers Stadium. I was a little drunk, but no, I just kind of knew. Like sometimes you meet people and you're like, they're not like me where I'm like in pink and sparkle and I'm like this is who I am. Like you just have a presence about you that like you have a lot of talent and a big story behind you. So I'm really happy that you have joined us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I
Yeah.
love your energy. It's
Thank
like the
you.
first thing when you walked in, I was like, David, I love her energy.
Yeah, so David is our mutual friend in LA. He kind of connects a lot of people.
He does. That man knows everybody.
Yeah, and I remember vividly, like, I don't know, I guess I had been in LA a little over a year at that point, and that little like corner on that street in Hollywood, it started to be like I started seeing people I knew frequently
Yeah.
over and over again. And I was like, LA's starting to feel like a small town, which is insane because it's a very, very big place.
It is crazy. There was this one place called Stone Street on Melrose, and that's where I met David, actually. I met a lot of my best friends there, but it felt like Little Italy
Ooh.
on that strip because you would just know everyone. You'd walk in, everyone would know you, and like, oh, it was the best coffee shop. R.I.P.
And so you're not originally from LA, but you
No.
made the leap of faith to move here.
Yes.
What was like the deciding factor?
So I moved around a lot, and I moved to Nashville when I was like 16, 17. Or no, maybe younger, honestly. But I was there for a while. And then after high school, I guess during high school, let me start that over. Because when I first went there, I was just like, I went there for music. I got a management deal when I was like 15.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's what got me to Nashville. Let me start
Okay.
with that. And I didn't go to normal school for like the first year. And then I was like, well, I hate this. I don't know anybody because I was only around like 40-year-olds mostly, or alone. So I was like, I want to go back to school. Went to high school, blah, blah, blah. My dad was like a huge inspiration for me, like doing music. He's the one that actually like got me to really pursue it. And I feel like I'm very lucky for that because a lot of kids, if they want to sing or whatever, they kind of are told like, that's not realistic. You know, my dad was the complete opposite. He was literally like, you need to do this. You have a talent. And so I remember when I moved to Nashville and I would say that in high school that like I wanted to do music and entertainment. They would look at me like I'm crazy and I like genuinely didn't understand because I was just raised like being like I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Which I'm grateful for. But anyways, that being said, when I was in Nashville, I had a lot of life stuff happen. My dad passed away and my brother passed away. And I kind of fell out of music before that. And once they passed away, I was like, what am I doing? Like life is so short. And so I started coming out to LA and I started getting into a lot of like writing camps.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just writing and making music all the time. And then, and then I got a manager in LA and I started working with them and like a publisher and everything. And so I started working in LA. Like I would fly to LA probably twice a month during that time. And then eventually I was like, I just need to move. And so I moved.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all before you were in your 20s?
Yeah. It was about like 20. Yeah. Like 19, 20.
That's insane.
I know. Yeah.
I mean,
That's crazy.
that's so powerful, and to have a parent that supported you like that is just amazing. And so was he a musician himself?
He was, yeah. He actually played for like John Lennon and like all the greats like you can think of. He played with all of them. Yeah. He just kind of back then they didn't really get paid money. They just got paid drugs. So he kind of fell into that. But yeah, but he was amazing. Like I could listen to him all the time. Like he was the best guitar player I've ever.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
So then how did you start to like, obviously you were going through so much at the time too. Like, how did you start to form your own identity separate of your father's?
Um, Honestly, I would say at like a young age, ironically, my dad always wanted me to sing country.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know if I just rebelled and was like, I'm doing the complete opposite of that. Which is funny now because now I do a little bit of country and I like to write it and like sing it, but it's still not like my genre, but
Yeah.
I do love country. But growing up, because he like wanted me to do country, I was like, I'm not doing country. So I mainly was very far removed from like his identity, I guess you could say. And I really never like, I guess, had an issue with like clashing identities or feeling like I wasn't myself, because I was pretty much from a young age just very like me, you know. Sometimes to a fault, but you know, I continue to learn and like grow, I guess. But yeah, no, I definitely think now I try to piece more of like his identity because it's like it feels comforting, you know.
I feel like also sometimes like we make genres to keep comfort.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think now more than ever, whether it's Beyonce's Cowboy Carter or like even Sinners for TV and film, like genre is just like how we talk about everything else. It's a construct.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I like seeing artists kind of push that boundary
Yeah.
and just make like whatever comes out of them.
Yeah, I definitely have a tendency to do that, which I am trying to be a little more like, I guess a little more, I don't know, like, I don't know what's the word you would put for that, but like, oh my God, is that
Like genre bending?
No, because I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But like more like connecting, I guess you could say. Because I would say I can definitely like I'll be R&B, I can do hip hop, and then the next day I'm like writing a sad indie song, you know, and then like the next day I'm writing like I don't know, like a country song. It's just like rock song, whatever. It's like I just like to kind of dabble in everything, which is also why I love songwriting, because it's like it doesn't matter. You don't need a genre. But as an artist, it is really hard for people to be like, whoa, like what are you? You know? So
my little secret is that I do love country music. Like
I love country music.
I'm obsessed with it. Like I will like I listen to the radio.
Yeah.
And I'll like have the country station on. And nobody knows that about me. I just shared it right now.
No, but I love it because like, I don't know, when I play country, it brings me back to a specific place. It brings me back to like Tennessee, back roads, like super country, and like horses on the side of the road and like sunshine, windows down. Like it's so beautiful. So anytime I play it, I'm just like feeling that feeling.
I mean, you were actually country. I just like, I mean, yes, I guess in Pennsylvania there was farms like very, we kind of joke because like Taylor Swift went to my high school. So, and your story of like, oh, she's moving to Nashville, like no one's going to believe in her. Well, okay. But she says like she was like, grew up on a farm, like, okay, she was born on a Christmas tree farm, but like the house that she grew up in was not a farm.
I know, dude. Yeah, she was doing just fine. Yeah.
But I'm like, but then I like hear stories like yours, and I'm like, no, you were actually country. So am I allowed to be country? Like, what does country actually mean?
You know what? I don't think there's any limitation. I think if you want to be country, you could be from New York, Manhattan, and grew up there your whole life, and like if that's what you love, like do it. You know. But it's funny because when I was in Nashville, I didn't like country.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That was like one of the things that struck me most about the first time I went to Nashville was just like the music.
I know.
But it was kind of all kinds of music. You expect it to just be country, but it was everything.
And you know what? There's actually like a really big like hip hop and like pop scene in Nashville. But I also think pop, everything blends into pop. Like most country that we probably listen to is pop. Right. You know? And so it's really big in Nashville. Yeah. So it's like, It's everywhere you go, honestly. Well, that's the nice thing too about Nashville and LA because they intertwine so
Mhm.
much. Whereas like I'll be walking down the street and I'll run into someone that lives in Nashville and I'm like, hey,
Oh, that's
I
crazy.
know it's so random.
It's a
Yeah.
very small world.
It's so small, especially in music too. It's like
Oh, I'm
very
sure.
small. It's like you're constantly running into people that you haven't seen in like 3 years and you'll just run into them in like a different state and you're like, what?
That's very random.
Yeah.
And I know that like you like speaking of like the liveliness of like Nashville and things like that, like you say that you think music can really bring light to people. And I think
Yeah.
that's 100% true. Like I think I fell in love like as a writer, I fell in love with storytelling because of song lyrics.
Yeah.
Especially when certain albums connected an entire narrative.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that? And when was the first time that like you felt light when you were either creating music or listening to music? Like what was your first memory of it?
Oh man, my first memory whenever somebody asks me this is Alicia Keys
Okay.
because I remember her album in particular. I would play over and over and over again, and this was during the time like this will get a little like deep, but I remember specifically my dad was in jail and my mom was on the phone and I remember she was like yelling or something was going on. And I used to do this thing, which probably is just my curiosity or it's like my sense of control, but I would like pick up the phone to like hear what was going on. And that's like how I found out my dad was in jail because I was eavesdropping on the phone.
Mm.
And so I was just like, from that moment, I like really escaped through music. And I remember putting like my headphones on and I like played it. And I'm probably like 7. Like I'm very young. And I remember playing it on repeat and repeat and repeat. And I would like make music videos in my room and like I would go outside and like knock on people's doors and like perform to them, which is so cringe now that I think
that
about
is so cute.
it's so funny because I'm just like, that probably, I'm like, honestly, people were so sweet, but I probably would have laughed at myself.
That's so cute.
Yeah, but like, that's like what I did to like escape from like that kind of environment. So I just would always go to music and her album in particular and like Avril Lavigne, which is super random, but like
I love Avril
yeah,
Lavigne.
I was like
Bring back Avril Lavigne.
Her and out like 2 completely different vibes, like you know. But those were like my 2. I would listen to them and I'd be like my emo phase Avril, and I'd be like she gets me.
Yep.
And then I have like Alicia Keys, where I'm just like my soul is like yearning for like that love, you know? And so it was like the best. So
I'm never going to grow out of my emo phase. I don't
no,
care
yeah,
what
same. Oh my God.
anyone says, I will never grow out of it.
No, I can definitely jump back and forth. And it comes in handy for writing songs because I can easily tap into being so emo.
Yeah.
Like I can sound like I could have the best day and then go into the studio and then write the most depressing, heartbreaking song ever, and like to the point where people in the room will be like, are you okay, like what's going on? And I'm just like, oh no, I'm fine, like I'm chilling. Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day too, because I was like, some people really like to describe me as emotional.
Yeah.
Right.
This is girl same.
Like I'm a very emotional. I'm like, am I emotional or do I just latch on to other people's, like, do they stick to me? Right? Like, got some news yesterday and I'm like, I'm reacting like it's my own life. And I'm like, because exactly what you said, it's like sometimes I'm having the best day, but that is the reason I'm able to tap into a level of sadness. And I don't even want to say sadness sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's nostalgia.
I think it's like empathy too. Like, because I can be the same way where like I have a good day, but like I could call my mom and maybe she's not having a good day or something happened. And then like I feel what she's feeling because I'm just like, no, you know, like, and I take it on.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. But I am very emotional and I don't think it's like a bad thing. I think emotions are great. It's just learning how to like navigate them.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So then when was the first time that you're like, all right, I'm picking up a pen and writing this down? Like, was it always in the form of song lyrics?
Yeah, I was honestly writing songs because, again, my dad. I started writing original songs when I was like 5 or 6.
Wow.
And then I wrote my first like real like beginning to end song, like verse, chorus, everything. I wrote it with my dad, and I think I was 10.
Wow.
I was like around that age, and we like recorded it and everything. I think it was called Unlocked Doors. Wow, I can't believe I remember that. Yeah, I know.
You should write it again.
I know. It's actually like, it's such a deep song for it. I was like, some of the lyrics I wrote when I was younger are kind of crazy because I'm just like, what is going on? Why are you writing about war at like 10?
That's very interesting.
No, I know. Some of them were very deep. Like even my dad would be like, it's like, what are you watching?
So do you remember like at that age, like kind of like how the words were spilling out of you? Like what was kind of making that spark happen?
Honestly, my dad taught me from a young age that inspiration hits like at the time that you're not searching for it. And it's usually when you're busy doing something else. And so my dad gave me like a recorder at the time to just literally record anytime I had an idea. So I would walk around the house, and if I was like outside running or playing, I always had my recorder. And so I would just like always record something, which is so funny. And I still do that because my best ideas come to me when I'm driving.
Yeah, me too.
I can't write it down. So like I actually watched a thing about it, and it's, you know, it's like your subconscious mind, right? Because you're busy, like you're focusing, you know? So it's giving time for your creation to kind of like flow.
Well, it's also for creatives, it's a rhythm.
Yeah.
So like the actual motor and the pacing of how, I think even driving in LA, because you can't drive very fast.
Yeah.
Because of traffic. But that's why they also say like babies like fall asleep in the back seat really easily. And sometimes parents get caught just driving around and around and around because they like that, the kind of the calmness of the car.
Yeah, it's a real thing because I've driven cross country like 8 times, probably more now.
Oh my God.
No, I know.
That's insane.
I know. But it's literally, it's crazy, but it's like, I get so much clarity and so many ideas and like direction when I do that because one, I'm forced I can't look at my phone.
Right.
I am, obviously I'm listening to stuff or whatever that is like kind of building my creativity. If it's not a podcast, it's like an audiobook, whatever. And then other times I'm just in silence, and I literally have the most profound things like come to me and like clarity and like all this stuff when I'm just driving.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't say it's a great place to drive because of the traffic.
It's not. Traffic, I hate.
Yeah.
I love driving, but only if there's no traffic. If there's traffic, I'm tweaking out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things. I drive from Woodland Hills down, so I'm I actually get that similar like driving feel, but that's why I'm like hesitant to move like into LA proper because it's like it's just traffic lights, boom, boom, boom. Like it's not that rhythmic, like slow kind of like, all right, you're just, so I don't know. I think that's also just my excuse not to leave like my solitude, but
I feel you. I honestly like the older I get, I'm like, I kind of want to live a little more, not central, but I do love West Hollywood.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't love is just like how far the highway is.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
It's like the worst part. It's like everything else is great. I love being able to walk everywhere. But yeah, I'm like, I need quiet and easy, So
as a creative, like, do you think, like, what plays more of a role in your songwriting? Because I think sometimes as artists, there's an image. It's not that we always think this, but there's an image of like you're either out like partying and like you're getting inspired because of all the drugs you're on or whatever. But I feel like we're both on similar wavelengths where we've really have learned some of our creativity is coming from a lot of like silence and safe spaces and things like that. Can you describe your process and maybe how it's changed?
Yeah, honestly, I have to like let it flow to me,
Mhm.
which obviously writing and being in sessions, it's a little more like corporate feeling, you know? It's like, okay, we have to do A and B, C and D, you know? Whereas like I've realized about myself, I do better with freedom, you know? So like if I'm lacking a day where I don't feel creative, I like have to do something that will bring it out, whether that's driving, whether that's
Mm.
like doing something that's not in my day to day that like I do the same thing every day, you know?
Right.
If I just do, maybe I go to a different coffee shop or I go on a hike somewhere and I run into somebody and that sparks a creation, like something creative inside me, you know? I like try to do stuff like that, you know, if I can, obviously. You know, there's days where it's like, okay, I actually can't, but how can I make this work for me the best I can? Because I have a session in like an hour,
Mhm.
you know? In that case, I usually put on something like on YouTube that's like inspirational and like, yeah, that's literally what I'll do. Yeah.
And then like, okay, so you moved to Nashville when you were in your teen years.
Yeah. Like, honestly, like, I think I was actually like 14. I was like either 14 or 15.
For
I don't know. That
songwriting or
time
for
was such a
singing?
blur. Singing.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
But now you do both.
Yeah.
You write for other people. What's
Mhm.
that like? Because are you taking your experiences writing for them, or are they giving you their experiences and you're writing about them?
It's usually kind of both.
Okay.
Like, on um, Nine, the song that I just released, the producer at the time was going through stuff, and I just went through like the most toxic situation I've ever experienced.
Mm.
And I remember like talking to him, and he was going through something kind of similar. And so technically it ended up being for me, but originally we were just going to give that song to pitch,
Okay.
which just means like to try to pitch it to other artists and stuff. Um, but I was like, no, it's like very much like personal to me. But anyways, but he was going through a very similar situation at the time, so it kind of bled into Nine. Like Nine isn't fully my experience. It's like I relate to it hardcore, but it was also like someone else's story too, you know, that he told me, and I was like, oh, that's great. I'm gonna use that in the lyric, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a lot of people's story, right?
I think everyone can, you know, has an experience with stuff like that.
Well, and I think what was so interesting about that track was like it's all about new beginnings, new cycles, rebirth.
Yeah.
But coming out of a situation that manipulates you and gaslights you.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was like when you first released it, and then you sent me like what it was about, right? Before I even like listened and like dove into the lyrics. It was kind of cool, like how numerology like can represent an experience.
Yeah.
And I guess I was curious to know like how symbols and numbers maybe play a role in the storytelling that you're doing with your songs. Is that something that you lean on?
Yeah. I always try to like, I don't know. I can be a very again, it's not emotional, but I'm a very like I look at everything as signs and like you know, like not crazily like, you know, if I see a number like, oh, I'm not doing it.
Right.
Yeah, but like I look at like whenever I'm really like in my flow and like doing my purpose or whatever, I will see signs. And crazy, when I wrote that song during that time period, it was really hard for me to let go of a comfort. Because it was like I let go of a lot during that year. Like I let go of community, I let go of people I thought that like I would have in my life for a very long time that I protected that just were not protecting me. You know, it was a very like one-sided relationship, and it was like multiple things happening at once, and I remember like crying all the time, and I was like so stressed out, and then dealing with all this like pointless drama. And I remember like driving and I kept seeing like on license plates it would be like some number, whether it was like 777 or like one of them was like 666, and it was like go. And I was like and I kept seeing like bye, I kept seeing go, like, anytime I would talk about it with people being like, okay, I really need to make this change, whatever, I would see like a sign, and I would see 999 a lot. Like I saw 9 literally probably every day during this time. And I was like, okay, I really need to do this. And then once I did it, I like had so many doors open for me, and obviously it wasn't easy though. Like it was not easy. It's still not easy. Like sometimes I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, the comfort of that comfortability is like, you still kind of yearn for it, you know, because it's like what you knew. And it was like my community during that time. So it was like really hard to let go of. But I will say, like, I had so many signs telling me to like leave. And then as soon as I did, like, so many doors opened for me. And it really changed me in the best way, because anytime I started dealing with something that was lesser than like what I know my worth is, it was so much easier for me to let go, because I was like, I know something's going to come like better. And then it's gotten so easy for me to just be like,
It makes me happy that the butterfly effect is going like viral on TikTok right now. I'm like, man, could I have had TikTok maybe when I was going through a gaslighting like situation?
Bro, I know. It is crazy because I've definitely noticed, like, obviously every girl deals with that, and I don't know if it's just more prominent now because we have social media, you know? But like,
I think there's an awareness of what the word gaslight even means, and I mean, a lot of people still don't know like the story behind how the term was coined. But I think what is also important to remember, and you touched on it, is like it's not always just a relationship. No. It's in work settings. It's in communities.
Oh my God, yeah.
Especially in these industries.
Oh, 1,000. Dude, during this time, I went through a like toxic relationship, toxic work environment, and like toxic friendships, you know, that was all very like one-sided, very like, you know, and I do believe like two play a part in that, you know, but it was just so unhealthy in like every regard. And every time I would say something, I'd be gaslit into thinking I was crazy, you know? And it was just
and
like,
then you add the layer of you're looking at numbers and I'm like, am I crazy? Like, but now there's an awareness about these. There's a community of healing, I think, too.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, you know, and I have a great boyfriend now, and he's definitely helped me, like, if I bring up, because obviously that, I feel like stuff like that still trails along, you know, and you still have like, you know, things that will come up, and I'll always like kind of vent to him about it and be like, did I do this, like, act appropriately, or like handle that situation X, Y, and Z? Was it me? Like, I don't know. I think everyone has a tendency to be like, am I like, is something I did, whatever. And he's really helped me like kind of clear away like the remnants of like that toxic time in my life and clinging on to it, because for the longest time during especially that era, I like couldn't speak my emotions because I was afraid that like it would upset somebody. Yeah. So I would just like roll it off or just go about my day and like pretend like nothing was wrong.
And I think you touched upon this on like when you were writing the song and what it's all about, and kind of this movement that's behind this song itself, but also your upcoming work. Talk about letting go, talk about rebirth, but then an important note is like that inner voice. And like, and I think like a lot of people don't realize this, but when you are manipulated to a point where you're so afraid to speak because it turns into a fight or your career's on the line, and there's actual stuff on the line, whether you have partly created it or someone's creating it for you in your head. It's not like the inner voice ever leaves. But it's really, really hard to listen to it. How did you do that?
I mean, I still struggle with it 1,000%. I think it helps a lot when you get rid of the people in your life that are keeping you down and are not the healthiest for you, and keep you in that cycle of, you know, being stagnant or whatever. It definitely helps that I have very healthy people around me now, where it's like I can voice things And it also helps me build trust within myself. So then I also know like when I have intuition or something tell me like, ooh, that's not right, or ooh, I shouldn't do that, I can listen to it more clearly because it's not so drowned, you know? And I do think that's so helpful. Like the people around you, your environment, where you're working, wherever, like whatever, you know, it's your environment is going to help you kind of like really find your own voice, you know?
Were you ever afraid, like when you were like, before you listened to that voice or knew how to listen to that voice, like were you ever afraid of being alone?
Oh, 1,000%. I literally, that situation I was talking about, I had so much like so many clear in my head. When I tell you, it sounded like you were talking to me, say like leave, or to say this person doesn't care about you. Like, you know, all that, like very clearly. And I remember ignoring it. And I was just like, no, I'm just being dramatic. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh my God, I can't.
yeah.
I could write a book about all the times I didn't. I mean, I am writing a book about my all.
Oh yeah,
But-
girl, same. There are so many. I would have saved myself so much pain and heartache.
I probably wouldn't have to go feel like I have to go write a book. No.
Yeah, literally.
I guess like
I wouldn't be writing songs. There you
well,
go.
and see, okay, we need to talk about that because I really it falls into the same way that people talk about resilience of like, oh, if I didn't go through all these things, I wouldn't be able to write or produce or do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way of excusing bad behavior.
Oh, honestly, it's so funny you say this because my biggest pet peeve, this is like my biggest pet peeve, is when people use what they're going through, what they've been through as an excuse to treat people like shit. Because like I could go into detail about everything I've been through. I'm sure you can. Like we've all been through stuff, and it's like I don't treat people poorly, or at least I try not to, you know? And it's just like it's not an excuse.
Well, then
you know?
also too, it's like I think like as creatives, it's like you touched on this earlier when you said it's crazy that I was writing those kind of lyrics at 10 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you didn't go through anything at 10 years old, but it's like, do you think that we need to go through these terrible things in order to create great art?
You know, I think about this every day. But that's hard because do I think hard experiences bring the best art? Yes. I think the worst heartbreak, you know, I can write the best songs, you know? But I've also met people that have had the most cushiony, beautiful life, you know, like families all still together, very close, like, you know, pretty much like everyone has their own issues, but basically a very nice life. And they can write some incredible songs. So I think that's it varies with person to person. Me personally, I think hard situations help me kind of write deeper, you know, and it's a sense of healing for me. But I definitely think it's a person-to-person basis because, like, there are some people I know that haven't had much happen to them and they write the most heartbreaking songs, you know, and it's beautiful. So.
And I wonder if we were talking before we even started recording, but I wonder if that goes to the notion of like, are you an emotional person or do you latch on to other people's emotions and know how to spin
you know what? And that's what I was going to say. It's usually because the people that I was, you know, just referring to that haven't had much happen, you know, like trauma level, but can tap into that are very empathetic people. Very, very like will sit down and like meet you where you're at type, you know, situation. So yeah, I definitely think it's empathy. I think if you have empathy, you probably could write.
And I think, especially if you've gone through something and you said you were letting go and things like that. And I'm sure that comes with its own shields, right?
Oh yeah.
That 1,000%. You are like, I know I struggle with that. Like, I know I struggle with that, like with friendships of like, I don't necessarily know how to like make close friendships anymore
Yeah.
because I'm still in this weird phase of like coming out of all this schooling and moving across the country. And it's like people don't understand those like friendship heartbreaks that happen in your
Girl.
20s, right?
Yeah. I've definitely like, again, even during that same time period, I like, you know, lost a good friend at the time, which was hard for me, but honestly, like, yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough. Like friendship breakups are like really painful, you know? But again, it's like, I don't know. It's like I want people in my life that want to be in my life, and where it's like it doesn't always, I guess, you know, sometimes it's going to vary where it's like you need more from your friend than you can give at the moment, you know, but it, you know, it's easy. Like you bounce back and forth, right? But if it's a friendship where you're just pouring in, and you're like there 24/7, but it's not being reciprocated, then it's like you're not really losing much.
Right.
You know, and I think it's easier when you look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and also I noticed too, a lot of the times when I would kind of drift away from friendships or friendships would end, I was like okay with it, you know? And I think that's like when you really know like somebody is just, it's like a contract, you know, like their contract in your life is like done.
Yeah.
You know?
So I feel like sometimes I write snippets of, I guess you could call them poems, but they feel like lyrics to me because of like whatever music.
I mean,
is going.
poems are lyrics, you know?
Right? Like and it's almost like I use them to capture snippets of time and memories, or a very like specific feeling where I can't always do that with prose, right? Because you're taught to like drag out the scene, build the world.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't know, like when you're writing these lyrics, it's like you're almost still able to keep some things for yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's a way to like put it out there, but also create some privacy.
Yeah.
Do you resonate with that at all? Or like how do you kind of take this moment of time and expand upon it to make it a whole track or even like an album? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm not so much like this anymore, but I have a lot of songs that are really vulnerable. And I also think this is why I've gotten more into songwriting, like for other people or doing other people's like projects, because it can be so vulnerable. Like there are so many songs that I probably won't release just because of like how personal it is like to me. And, you know, my mom says that's like my biggest block, but it's like really hard to be that vulnerable, you know, and just be like, oh, this is everything in that experience, you know? Because I also think when you're creating, like whether it's like writing or poems, it could be such a glimpse of a moment, you know, whereas maybe it wasn't that big of a deal or it wasn't like so crazy at the time, but then when you start writing about it, it's like you can turn it into the most like heartbreak or dramatic situation, you know, and you can get really like messy with it, you know.
Is it okay if I push back on like the definition of vulnerability?
Yeah, of course.
I guess like, because I know what you mean of like, sometimes I look back on certain like diary entries from like, let's say like 2016.
Yeah.
And now, like if I look at myself now, so like that was like when I was like 19.
Yeah.
19, whatever. And would I asked myself, would I react that way now? Of course not.
Yeah.
Was it that big of a deal? I mean, if you're looking at it with the context of now, it absolutely wasn't. But I'm like, it was back then.
1000%. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, I guess sometimes, like, I latch on to, wow, these are really vulnerable things because they're embarrassing. Because if you look at it from a bigger lens, right, it actually doesn't mean that much, right? But it meant everything at one point. Like I had a roommate in college. She told me early on, and it doesn't apply to everything, don't get me wrong, but she said, don't have regrets because at one moment it's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
And it always stuck with me because I was like, and I think she might have actually said it after I was like freshman year, like very much did not want to date anyone. Of course I dated someone.
Yeah.
And then like had my heart broken. And it was like, I think that's when she said it, was like, because I'm pretty sure I was like, I regret this. Like I should have just listened to myself. And it's like, no. That was like, if we're looking at plot points, like that was what hit everything off.
Oh, I 1,000% agree with that, because there can be like little things I think about, like I regret not leaving sooner, right? Or whatever.
It doesn't apply to terrible situations.
Yeah. But even so, I am grateful I went through that, because it really did help me today. Yeah. You know, because I probably would still have that people pleasing, like wanting to make everyone happy, and this like weird fixation on like unhealthy people, you know, where it's like, you know, now it's like I don't, you know, but like I needed to go through the absolute worst. Not saying that you have to, but like for me in my personal case, I don't regret it, because if I didn't go through it, it would have been another situation. Yeah. You know, so
I just think that like, because I think I also went through a phase where I was like, I don't want to be vulnerable anymore. It's exhausting. I like don't want to make this my entire identity. But then I kind of also realized like it was my biggest superpower. Yeah. And I don't know. I just like, sometimes I just wonder if like we as a society like look at vulnerability as weak because it makes us comfortable.
I agree. And I think vulnerability is like a gift. I still have my healing journey with it. Yeah. You know, because of, you know, gaslighting or whatever, or like even just growing up, like I had to be like the person that would have to mend everything, or like be the non-confrontational one. And so I think for me, it's still tapping into like letting my own guard down, of being like, okay, you don't need to be like that anymore. You don't like, you know, you don't have to, you can cry if you want to cry. You can be honest with people and tell them you're having a bad day. Like you can talk about things. But I still battle that. And especially when like in songs and stuff where I am like really, really personal, it's still very hard for me to play that for people. Like it's still, I still have like a quilt on with a lot of my songs. Like even 9, it's like it's vulnerable, but it's not as vulnerable as I could have gotten. You know, there's a lot of lyrics in that song that didn't go on there because like it's too vulnerable. You know, so like, and not that there's a such thing as too vulnerable, but in my own like healing journey, it's like sometimes I'm uncomfortable, even with me just releasing. It's like it's so personal to me, so it's like, oh, the whole world, you know. But yeah, I don't know. It's a constant battle, but I agree with you. I think vulnerability is a gift, and I think we need more of it for sure.
You know what's crazy about you kind of saying that is like I was reading an interview, or no, it wasn't an interview. I'm sorry. It was one of her like YouTube behind the scenes like recording sessions for Gracie Abrams. And I knew my sister has been a diehard Gracie fan since she was like on like SoundCloud and like putting snippets out or whatever. And my sister was always like, as a teenager, she's like, this girl's gonna be huge. This girl's gonna be huge. And I'm like, okay, cool. And my roommate, when I went to Sarah Lawrence, was like, do you want to go to this Gracie concert? I'm like, sure, whatever. It's Valentine's Day. Like, of course I'll spend Valentine's Day with you and we'll go to this Gracie concert. Yeah. Mind you, I only knew a few of her songs, like wasn't like a huge fan or anything. I watched her perform and I was like, oh my God, the girl can sing, like really sing. Cause I guess like, I was like, I wasn't getting it from her tracks. Like obviously she's talented. I'm not gonna like, but like, there was more power hearing her live. Yeah. And I was like, what are her, and I didn't blame her. I was like, what are her producers not doing where they're extracting this? Yeah. And I thought I was the only one that felt this way. Right. And I remember being down at Abbot Kinney like one day and I was like saying this on the phone, like, because I was talking about this because I was I was blaming male producers.
I'm
First of
crying.
all, like blaming them. I was like, they just want to make all these girls like sound the same, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it turns, and I'm so glad I never like wrote about it. Of course, I'm sharing it right now, but that's besides the point. Like she talked about it on her YouTube sessions that before she only ever wanted to make music for herself and like in her room because it was a way for her to cope with the things that she was feeling. And then she kind of had to make this shift as like she gained popularity. And I was like, well, yeah, we are not going to drag down this girl because she's just freaking healing.
Yeah.
But I thought that was so cool because it was like to see her grow as an artist, you see her voice come out more and more and she's willing to belt it out a little bit more and more. But then it's like if you see her live, she gets this energy from the crowd and she's actually genuinely having fun with it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's so important.
That it was just inspiring.
Yeah.
Because it was like, and I think we forget that too, is like I can't even imagine, like with your industry, we reward a very viral kind of culture.
Yeah.
Of being like content creator, musician, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's very like number game. Yeah.
But then if you're writing your own songs, like how do you even stay true to your art?
I will say that is hard. I think a lot of songwriter artists can agree with this because it's when you're being in sessions, like you're going to session after session after session, you do have a tendency to start to follow the trend or start writing more, I don't want to say like less authentically because I think, there's always a piece of you in everything you do. But you start following a type of formula that makes it a little more less authentic, if that makes sense, where it's like if you're in a room with like 4 people, their own creative take and your creative take, it's all going to kind of blend. And sometimes it ends up being like something that's a little far away from like you. Yeah. So there's definitely a balance. Like I love writing alone. Most songs that I wrote that I like keep to myself are when I write it alone. But there are also some cool songs that I've gotten to be a part of that, I got to write with other people. Yeah. So it's honestly just, you have to kind of have like your own discernment with it, but it is like, it's hard because producers will have their own, the way that they produce, the way they vocal produce, everything. It's going to have their own little like twist on it that might sound different than like your other stuff.
What's that relationship like? Because like, I think that's what I find so interesting about you as a singer and songwriter is like, then you have to take this and make it a collaborative thing. Yeah. And you're spreading that light with multiple people. Forget the audience. Like even to get it to that point, you have to form this relationship. I know you talked about like sometimes that you're hearing their experiences and like bringing that into your own writing. But especially when the music was finally meeting the lyrics, like what is that feeling?
Well, honestly, I would have to bring it back to like 2020 because I wrote a lot during that time, obviously because the world was on lockdown. And then when I did meet with a producer, it was a song I already like wrote. So we would build around it and that was really cool. But mostly sessions I walk in and like the track and everything is already built. Oh, wow. Or they're building it and then you just make the melodies and then you write to that. So it's more of like you're writing around a track, that you're vibing to. So it's like a different way where I feel like I can get more emotional when I'm writing to nothing. And also it makes me a little more creative because there are no boundaries. Right. But like when you already have a beat or like a song that you're trying to write to, or if there's a style you're trying to do, it's like you already kind of have these like boundaries that you have to kind of stay in. And so they're both very like different. I prefer writing alone though. So to stay in my own little bubble.
And then what are you excited for next?
My song with Gabby. Yeah. I'm really excited. She's so talented. And this one is a complete different vibe from 9. It's sexy, it's fun, it's a good summer song. So I'm really excited about it. It's happy.
Yes, we love that.
We
for
love
summer.
happy. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for my song with Gabby. I'm shooting the video on Wednesday.
That's
So it'll be
exciting.
fun. Yeah. No, I'm really excited. The vision for it is like so cute. And it's really, I'm excited.
And we are so here for a transformation era because that's what it's
Hell
all about at Sparkle.
yeah, brother.
So, yeah.
Can't wait.
That's so amazing. I really appreciate you helping us dive into kind of the behind the scenes of your creative workings. And I have been wanting a singer-songwriter on so badly. And so you're the first. Yes. So thank you so much for joining us and Sparkle on.